This is the Cycling Over 60 podcast, Season 4, Episode 10. Beverly Meyer wants us to eat like humans. And I'm your host, Tom Butler. I kind of surprised myself the other day. Next weekend, I'm going to ride the Cascade Bicycle Club's Chili Hilly. It's 32 miles and 2,170 feet of elevation. There's a number of 9% grade climbs that I find to be challenging. So I need to get my legs into shape for it. To prepare, I've been riding a local hill, but it seems like if I push my legs too far, they're going to cramp up. Most of my riding has been on flat ground since I've been recovering from a bad cold a couple weeks ago. It seems like my lungs are taking forever to heal. Recently, I decided to take on a hill in Zwift to push my legs. It was a route that was a constant steep climb, so I knew I'd have the opportunity to stay at an intense level for around 30 minutes. I've mentioned before that climbing in Zwift is nothing like climbing in the real life for me, but I knew this route was going to provide a good challenge to my legs. When I got done, I was surprised to find that based on my power output during the ride, Zwift increased my functional threshold power from 195 to 199. I'm excited about that. The ride was a tough effort, but I didn't push myself past a reasonable intensity based on heart rate. I like FTP as a measurement of my progress, and I've looked trying to get an FTP of 200 as a good goal for now, and I like being so close. But here again is this great news. I'm still getting stronger at 63. Even after riding the bike for 3 years now, I can still increase my FTP. And even better is that apparently being off the bike for 2 weeks, including being sick for a week, didn't set me back as far as I thought. Even though I set this new FTP, I am not in the best shape. In addition to that, I'm still having Achilles problems. But it is healing slowly. I keep KT tape on it when I'm going to be walking a lot. Riding hasn't seemed to impact it at all. I'm not sure that doing the Chili Hilly will continue to be the case. But I don't expect it to set me back very much. In my family, we've always used KT tape, but I'm interested in trying rock tape. It sounds like it has better adhesion. I've had issues with KT tape from time to time coming unstuck. So if rock tape has better adhesion, then that could be great for me. I'm still doing a lousy job with my flexibility exercises. I know that's not helping with my Achilles problem. And I really got thrown off my program when I was sick, and I'm having a heck of a time getting back to it. I guess it's time to ramp up some accountability mechanisms again. I've been talking about the Tour de Cure a lot. We're getting close to the end of February, and I'm going to need to order jerseys soon so that I can get them in time. So the end of February is the end of time to register to make sure you have the correct jersey size. I continue to be extremely excited about the Tour de Cure. I look forward to the great partnership that is forming between Cycling Over 60 and the American Diabetes Association. In fact, I accepted an invitation to be the community event chair for the Tour de Cure here. I don't think that means a lot, but I do think it's a signal that they see Cycling Over 60 as a great partner. Of course, I would love all of you to come out here and join us in the Tour de Cure on May 2nd. I'll put a link to the routes in the show notes, just in case I can tempt you with a nice ride around Lake Washington. If you can't come do the ride, please consider giving a donation to the team. You can find the team link in the show notes as well. My diet continues to be a work in progress, trying to absorb a lot of information about eating in the best way for me. I got an opportunity to speak with Beverly Meyer, who you can find at ondietandhealth.com or through her podcast, Primal Diet, Modern Health. I'll put both those links in the show notes. Beverly has been practicing clinical nutrition since 1985. I'm thrilled to have somebody with that kind of experience on the podcast. And I'm very happy for you to listen in on our conversation here. I am thrilled to welcome Beverly Meyer to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, you are the force behind ondietandhealth.com. And also you have a podcast called Primal Diet, Modern Health. And I'm glad to have somebody here who has your perspective as a certified clinical nutritionist and also someone that like is spending their time educating people, helping people find solutions and things like that. You have been in practice since 1975. I'm sorry, you've been in practice since 1985. And, I think that that experience is fantastic to have. Before I go into much, I'm curious, was there something when you were younger that created an interest in being a health professional?
Yes, I think this is true of most of the functional health, natural health, alternative health, complementary medicine, whatever you want to call it. I think this is true for most of us, is that we had an experience of our own health that did not change, improve, whatever, be understood through a traditional medical system or doctor or series of doctors, but that we did find understanding and change when we stepped outside the narrow box of a 5-minute consult and began to reach out to alternative practitioners, whether they were even chiropractors or acupuncture or myofascial release or whatever type of coaching work or medical work they do, that it's not the sit down, how are you, okay, fine, have a nice year. that So yes, in my own case, yes, I was in Duke University in the 70s, and I had a chronic virus that I couldn't shake, I didn't understand, and got no help at all from the Duke Medical Center. And yet a friend said, why don't you go try these guys? He's not a doctor, but he's helped me and he knows a lot. And that was a big wake up call for me, that this person without credentials was able to recommend some things that did help me. And I was a college student, so I've been at this a long time, turning over rocks and learning, oh, what does this person have to offer? And oh, now that's a field I've never heard of. Let me make an appointment and go check it out.
It's interesting that you say that because I think it's a comment about the complexity of the human body. It's such a amazing machine, we're such amazing organisms, and there's just a lot out there to that you can look at.
Well, one of the fundamental premises of, as I say, natural health, functional health, alternative medicine, complementary health, holistic health, is the principle of biochemical individuality. And that's a phrase that's been around at least 40 years, but biochemical individuality. So that, of course, we have things in common as humans. That's why my diet, which we may talk about, I call it the diet for human beings. But you and your twin brother may have not that you have a twin brother, I'm just saying, may have very different needs and issues, and it's not just genetics, it's the whole thing, how you were raised and what you eat and how you live and whether you got hit on the head or whatever, that we are very biochemically individual. And in functional health, that's why we spend so much time with people, and why the insurance company doesn't pay for us, is because we are trying to understand this person now, what is going on and how did they get to this point. And I had a client once a long time ago, and we were in our second appointment. I knew a lot about them. And at some point she stopped and she said, did I ever tell you I only have one kidney? I said, no, you didn't tell me. She was there for an adrenal problem. Her doctor had sent her to me for an adrenal problem. And I said, well, if you only have one renal gland, that's the kidney, what else do you think you might only have one of? And she didn't get the prompt. I said, an adrenal. I said, it's very possible your adrenal issues are the fact that you only have one adrenal. And that that was a perfect example right there.
Yeah, and I think that there's a need to do more training for everybody. There's just so much to learn. I think that's an example of someone that maybe wasn't used to really understanding their body at a really deep level.
But that's so true that I'm guilty of that too. I recently was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I had absolutely no clue that I'd had it, and had been searching for answers about my symptom that I was having for 10 years. And none of the medical specialties I'd spoken with, I mean, I really worked at this for 10 years, and no one ever suggested, that's one of the top 6 signs of sleep apnea. And so, it even with my passion for research, you can still miss the things that are right under your feet.
That's so interesting. Now, I want to take a minute here just to say that this conversation isn't about getting medical advice. Everybody should be working with health professionals. Like you said, everybody is an individual. Everybody has unique things going on and should be getting advice that is tailored to your specific situation. Now, I mentioned that you've been practicing functional nutrition. I don't think I use the term functional nutrition, but that's a term that you use, and since the 1980s. I wonder if you could talk a bit about why you use the term functional nutrition, and then also talk a bit about kind of if you can encapsulate what you've seen over the time that you've been in practice. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of transitions along those years.
Okay, so a couple of big changes there, or big questions there. So first of all, kind of what is functional nutrition? Well, I am a clinical nutritionist, and we are a more elite field. We're not dietitians or nutritionists. We're clinical nutritionists. So we have a lot of training in lab work and the what why does a hormone how does a hormone get signaled for this, and why is this enzyme being blocked, or what is causing this biliary problem, or what 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 does the tingling in your feet might mean. So we are the chemists of the body, and we're all over the body. We don't have a specialty like cardiology or whatever. It's really tough because we have to try to think, now wait a minute, didn't you say you also have headaches, or whatever a question might be that might help me put something together in my mind to paint a picture of somebody. And that's what functional healthcare is about, is that we what we often say on many of our websites is treat the cause, not just the symptoms. And that's the key right there between complementary medicine and allopathic or regular medicine, is that they've got a very limited time to be with you, and they want to try to get you symptom relief as fast as they can, which is great, and they do a good job, but they may not have time to figure out why have you broken your arm for the third time, or why are you waking up every night at 3 a.m. And that's where, to me, true healthcare comes in, is what is causing this. Oh, you're on 3 different blood pressure medicines, and so you're falling a lot, and oh, and that's why you keep breaking your arm. And so that's what functional nutrition is supposed to be about, is no snap decisions. You've got to try to understand more about where this person, how they eat, how they sleep, what their history is, what meds and supplements they're taking, what's their emotional thing, are they in an abusive situation, or whatever the case may be. And then you asked about what changes have I seen in in 36 years of practice. Wow, that's a great question. I don't know that I have seen changes, really. It's still the same conditions that I was just speaking to, that our medical system does a good job at. Okay, you have high blood pressure, take this pill, I'll see you in 6 months. And that may or may not be the right medication, and then they change it or whatever, but they don't understand. It's often the case where doctors don't have time or training to think through, well, what are the causes of high blood pressure? And that one thing is not a simple question. And I don't see that this situation has changed. We are treated as a collection of body parts, basically. And if I've shattered my leg or something, I want a leg specialist. Thank you very much. But if I'm there for chronic tingling and irritation in my legs or something, I want to be able to look a little deeper.
One of the things I eat pretty carefully. I don't eat a lot of things that other people eat, and when I go into the grocery store, there's just I don't know. I think you could eliminate 80% of the grocery store from what I could eat, and I am wondering, looking at a grocery store, it doesn't seem like people are understanding much more, like what should be put in your body or what is good to put in your body. And I'm wondering what you've seen throughout the years. Do you think people are becoming more informed, more sophisticated about the decisions of what they put in their body?
That's another really good question. I think in part it comes down to not just your education and willingness to learn or hear or read articles, but that there's also a financial aspect to this. And we a large majority of our population lives on cheap carbohydrates, and that's of course the basis for diabetes and overweight and insulin resistance and many other problems like women that get fibroid cysts or whatever. A lot of this is related to the diet of the sugars and the carbs and the potatoes and the breads and the chips and the pie and the juice and all of this stuff that we did not, during our times as hunter and gatherer, during the Paleolithic time in history, which was hundreds of thousands of years, we were hunters and gatherers, and we didn't have carbohydrates. And I mean, yes, if you found a tuber, that's got some carbs, but we never found a lot of fruit. Fruit, that old phrase, the early bird gets the worm. Well, the early bird and the ant and the fox and the snake and all that get the fruit. And, by the time a human gets out on the trail, what little fruit was ripe that day has already been eaten. So humans didn't evolve with a lot of fruit or other carbohydrates. Our biology is set up for animal protein, the saturated fats from healthy animals and coconuts, and then all the different kinds of other weeds or mushrooms or edibles that we can find that are not made from the seed of grass. And that's what most carbs are: corn, wheat, rice. They're grass seed. That is what they are. They're grass seed. And if you have a horse, you will see, oh, that horse eats off the ground, it eats grass seed. But if you have a human, that human does not bend down and nibble on grass seed. And just like that, the horse cannot eat your hamburger. So I suppose they could, but they don't. They have more sense than we do. So that is, it's, and the carbs are cheap food. The white bread, the pasta, the corn chips, the big gulp, 40-ounce soft drink or whatever these things are, the adulterated juice, quote unquote, juice beverages that are corn syrup. So when people are financially pressed, they're very much limited to carbs. And there are plenty of other people that are educated and have the funds to buy proper meat and vegetables, but don't do it. And I don't know what to tell you about that.
We'll be right back.
I'm taking a moment here to remind you that we're putting together something special for next May. the Tour to Cure Pacific Northwest. It's the signature fundraising ride for the American Diabetes Association. I know it's early, but that's exactly the point. By signing up now, we'll have plenty of time to build excitement and turn this into a great launch party for the summer cycling season. I want to give a special shout out to Convergent Wealth for sponsoring our team jerseys. Thanks to Convergent, Team Cycling Over 60 is going to stand out with custom jerseys and make a powerful statement that vitality means staying active as you age. Head over to tour.diabetes.org/team/CO60 and sign up for the ride. You can find that link in the show notes. And if you're listening from outside the Pacific Northwest, consider this your invitation to come experience some of the most beautiful cycling routes in the country. It's going to be our spring celebration of everything we love about cycling and the enduring joy that it brings to our lives, no matter our age. Let's come together to make this a great event with a purpose. Now, this is a hard question to answer. I'll admit that right out of the gate. But I'm wondering, when you look at understanding how to maintain health, as you already talked about, everybody's an individual. But are there some things that you see as foundational, kind of overarching concepts that you would point people to?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the subtitles on my DVD, The Diet for Human Beings, was no matter who we are, no matter who you are, it's how we're meant to eat. So whether you're a 10-year-old girl or a triathlete or whatever, we're the same species. And we do have the same basic structure and chemistry and biology, or the same stomach acids and this and that. And so food is so extremely fundamental to any species, whether it's a macaw or a koala bear. Their food is extremely specific, and we are the same. It's just that we are, we're spoiled rotten, and we have big mouths and very facile hands, and we can stuff almost anything in there and try to swallow it. And whether we can digest it or utilize it properly or not is another question. So what we eat is absolutely fundamental to every aspect of our health. And the other is sleep. So you can't get more basic than food and sleep. And when I'm working with clients, I let them know, look, I'm not your normal person. We're going to be working for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to ask you to do a lot of homework and upgrade your diet and upgrade your sleep. And, you got to work for this if you want to get rid of your migraines and your frozen shoulder and your poor breathing and your acne and your whatever, all this great list of stuff that people come to me with. I say, I can't wave my magic wand, but I can I can tell you, you're not eating the way your body wants you to eat, and your sleep is disturbed or whatever. We need to discuss to get people to help them fall asleep and help them stay asleep. And that's where of course I bring in the herbs and the supplements there. But eating properly will also help sleep. We are often struggling with hunger and blood sugar and food deprivation. This is very true of women, especially, that women have been trained to be thin and starve themselves, basically. And so many of the female clients I get, I look at their weekly food diary, and it's like, they're basically in malnutrition. They may be eating perfect foods, and really good foods. They're not eating hamburgers and junk food. They're eating quote unquote good food, but it's some salad and 2 ounces of fish and a fifth of a sweet potato, and that's their whole meal. I'm like, wait a minute, that was 3 bites of food. So that's also part of it. It's not just what we eat, but when we eat, and are we getting enough food from our food, digesting it and using it. And for people in any kind of athletic adventure, whether it's pickleball or cycling or whatever, obviously your need for fuel is going to go up too. So, it's like, yes, get the basics, now eat more of it. Just eat more of it.
I think it's so interesting, the way that you're putting this, and you have a saying that I saw that's eat like a human being, which I thought was a very interesting thing to say. And I wonder if you can unpack that more.
Well, one of my favorite books was, the author is Mark Sisson, Sisson, who wrote The Primal Diet, or the Primal Blueprint. And it's in its 5th edition now. But in his first edition, he listed the paleo primal food pyramid, and he put fruits and vegetables at the bottom. And he very quickly pulled that edition and put a second edition properly showing the animals are the base of of a human food pyramid. The meats and so on, the cartilage and the bone marrow and all that's where we're focused. So eat like a human being. Yes, we're not carb burners. We're meant to be fat burners, but we've become sugar burners. And that was a subtitle in his book, that if people can get a second edition, which is, I don't know, 10 years old or something, we're born to be fat burners, but we have become sugar burners. And by that, I mean, whether it's millet or whatever it is, it's the carb foods. And this transition happened at the end of the Paleolithic era and the beginning of the more modern era, when we began keeping animals and starting the first attempts at agriculture, mostly to feed the animals that we were keeping, instead of having to go and hunt them all the time. That was the big change in history, when we stopped the second one from going out into the going out and hunting was the first one. But once we began to stay in a place, raise animals, feed animals, rather than have to roam and hunt them and fight other community groups for the rights to bring down or certain animals. That all happened after the last ice age, and that's only 14,000 years ago. It's a blink of an eye. So our true human self was from the Paleolithic era, which obviously that's where the word the paleo diet comes from. That's our true nature for what we can digest, and our stomach acids, our enzymes, and so on. It's our history. And that's one of my quotes, is follow the biology. And if you buy, if you get a German Shepherd or you get a tarantula, whatever it is, follow the biology. What does a tarantula eat? I have no idea, but tarantulas know what tarantulas eat. And you don't have to train them. You just need to find out what they eat.
Well, you're saying some things that are just really interesting to me. There's a couple things here. What a big thing is that you have to look back a long time, not 50 years, not 100 years, but a ways back to really think about, how do humans eat? And what were the situations that led to how humans eat? You brought
Well,
up the fact that we have hands and fingers. I'm guessing there's even, aspect that we're upright in the way that we move. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to really conceptualizing the food choices that humans made that got us here today.
here's another example. If an herbivore, like a yak or a zebra or a cow or a horse, their spine is parallel to the ground. Their eyes and nose are pointed towards the ground. And what they're hunting for is the next tasty leaf or flower or moss or shrub, whatever. But a human, we obviously are upright, and our eyes track motion. So a hunter tracks prey with the motion of its eyes. And so, a bird flies by, a deer runs by, a snake slithers by. Those are proteins. And as hunters, we hunt using motion, not necessarily smell or hearing. Of course, is part of it. You hear something growl or whatever, but we track and hunt with our eyes, and the zebras track and hunt with their eyes down and with their nose and their sense of smell.
I have had people say to me before, well, carbohydrates are the main fuel that we need. Glucose is the fuel of our body, and carbohydrates have glucose. I'm thinking you've heard something similar to that.
Yes, and again, that, as I was saying, Mark Sisson's book, The Primal Blueprint, it's just really well done. And yes, he's, I mean, it's not just him, but I mean, I'm a co-founder of the paleo diet. So, we all know that looking back, yes, we hunt animals, we eat every part of the animal that we possibly can, and then we gather the nuts or the egg or some honey or some weeds, and a tuber, which we'd find some tubers, set our traps for squirrels or whatever, and we'd harvest and keep the fat from the animals that we harvested. And the fat and the nuts and things of that nature would be often what would keep us through a winter. The dried smoked meat, the fats. So again, as Sisson says, we were born to be fat burners, but we have become sugar burners.
And I'm so glad you did this. You talked about clinical nutrition and kind of what that means. You talked about the focus on the human chemistry, really, and you have a focus on hormones. Now, I know that's a massive topic in and of itself. I'm wondering if you can boil that down into some principles that you'd like people to know about hormones.
That's a big question there. Okay, so again, I start with how we eat and live and sleep, because hormones, there's a base, just like neurotransmitters and hormones are baseline managers for micromanaging. This should happen now, this should happen now, this should happen. The neurotransmitters and the hormones are right in there driving that chariot, steering those horses what to do next. Stop, run, turn left, go back. So the hormones, well, golly, the male and female hormones, cortisol, the big adrenal hormone, DHEA, testosterone, these hormones are steroidal hormones, and they're all made from cholesterol. All of them are made from cholesterol. Now, what does that tell you? Well, we evolved consuming cholesterol. We didn't go out and harvest leaves and twigs. we harvested cholesterol. So testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, pregnenolone, DHEA, cortisol, they're all made from cholesterol as their basis. So that's the first thing, is that yes, follow the biology. We eat, we live, we have to sleep, and the hormones and neurotransmitters will happily do their thing if we give them a chance and stay out of the way. And here's something that I notice a lot with my female clients that are 40 and older, is almost universally, I'd say 80%, are deficient in progesterone. And what most good functional practitioners use for testing is not blood work, it's salivary hormone testing, or there's a specific urine test, dried urine, which is different than collect urine in a jug. So we use a different testing format for the cortisol and progesterone and testosterone and all of this, and it's can be much different than blood. But seeing so much, so many women, so much of a greater percentage of women being low in progesterone, and that's a complicated thing. But in a bottom line, because of our life stress, and that's everything you can think of and name, the hormones pull us away from the guidance of the body, pulls us away from making certain hormones so that it can keep loading cortisol. So in our high stress, high activity, dangerous, anxiety inducing lifestyles where, there's too much noise, too much threat, too much danger, there's just so much going on physically and emotionally. We are drawing on our cortisol reserves 24 hours a day. And when we do that, the other male, female hormones can suffer. And then there's insulin resistance from overeating carbs. That's what blocks also the testosterone and the estrogen and the progesterone. It's insulin resistance, and that's another big topic, and it's quite fascinating what's happening when we're overweight from eating carbs, that we become insulin resistant, or metabolic syndrome, or syndrome X. And when we are insulin resistant, the whole cascade of make hormone A, now make hormone B, now send it over here, all of that is broken. And people who are overweight are universally insulin resistant. I'm not talking 5 pounds, but 1,500, 150, 200 pounds. People 20 pounds, let's say 20 pounds or more chronically, that they become insulin resistant, and their hormones are going to be off kilter. So we're right back to the beginning, which is, let's start with what you eat, how you live. Are you sleeping? Have you been checked for sleep apnea? What's going on with your nighttime process, that you're waking up or not falling asleep, and so on? We have to get back there if we want to support hormones. It's not just about giving people a hormone. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's only part of the picture. Woo, that was a long answer. Sorry.
Well, it's a complicated subject, and it's also, hearing you talk about it, there's a really fundamental importance of it. And I think I know what answer you would give to this, but it sounds like you would say that you can't really understand your health status if you're not understanding what's going on hormonally.
Yes, although no, it's hormones are a strong governing group of actors like neurotransmitters, but most people have absolutely no idea what they are. They need to be tested, and the way that the medical community tests hormones, frankly, it's not correct. It doesn't mean that it's incorrect, but it's not optimally correct, which I think personally the salivary hormone, or what they call Dutch dried urine testing, can provide much more accurate insight into hormones. And even then, it depends on, if it's a menstruating female, it depends on what day of your cycle you test on. This is so huge. And I can't tell you how many people come to me with blood work for female hormones. And my first question is, what day of your cycle did you take this test? Which, their eyes glaze over immediately. They have no idea. So already I know that it's a completely invalid test.
Again, it's such a fascinating thing, and it goes back to the complicated machine that the human body is. It's a wonderful machine and a complicated machine, and hormones are in there as part of that. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was supplements. Do you have a philosophy about supplements, about supplementation?
Yes, and the first clue is the word itself, supplement. So a supplement by definition is a supplement, which means it's something that you're adding to something else. So when I'm one of my many mottos is tell people, I am not a pill pimp. I am not here to have you use my online store or come in the clinic or whatever and just sell you a bunch of pills. You won't take them more than a month or two and whatever. And besides, your needs change all the time. And it's just if they're going to eat and live and sleep and do whatever they're doing the same old way, the supplements don't. 5 pills does not have a chance of overcoming a person living on fast food and 4 hours of sleep a night with an abusive partner. I mean, there's a lot you've got to unpack there, and the supplements are when they're done properly. I personally don't add supplements to people except for a certain type of vitamin D that I use, which is very unique. And that only when I have them test their vitamin D, which I do 100% of my clients. But I don't add supplements necessarily, except maybe some of the sleep ones, until maybe the third appointment. And we've gotten a lot of food diaries and food homework, and there's just homework, and there's a lot going on, and you're kind of clearing the bases, as it were. I just had an image of a baseball field, and somebody's out there brushing the bases to get the dirt and the grass off of them because they can't see them. And that's kind of how it is with supplements. And trying to help you, I need to be able to get some clarity and clear off some of the dirt and the grass. This person that's only eating twice a day, and it's only 6 bites of food, and they don't sleep and whatever. I can't supplement through that, but I do often use very specific sleep support to help people get some sleep. But the other supplements come. I mean, I have 1,000 products in my clinic, so I only have 135 or 50 online. But yes, I have supplements, but they don't come last. I mean, they don't come first. They come as supplements to the work that people are doing. It may be dental work. They may need to go and have their root canals or their mercury fillings examined, or there's fundamental things that may have to happen, and a handful of pills are just not going to do it.
I think it's a great clarification. Like you said, the word is supplement, so that's not primary. Are there some big nutritional mistakes that you see people make? And I'm, our audience is, looking to stay healthy later on in life. And I'm wondering, even like as we age, are there mistakes that you think that are common that people make?
A lot of them, but for example, the vitamin D I just mentioned. Vitamin D is something that more doctors are finally aware of, that they need to test this in their patients. But what everybody should know their vitamin D status. It's such a potent vitamin. It has so many jobs in the body, and I don't ever want anybody to ignore their vitamin D status. And here's a little tip, that when you look at a lab report, and for example, it says this thing on the lab should be between 20 and 100, and your score was 29. So your doctor puts a happy face by that. Well, now wait a second. When you're looking at lab work, you want to always aim for the middle. If it's 20 to 100, let's see, that's 120, half of that is 60. Oh, well, I'm at 29. Maybe I'm half of ideal. This is not good. So we'll see that classically with vitamin D. It has a huge range, which doctors I don't know about doctors, whoever does this, that's a question, creates those lab ranges. has been tightening those lab ranges to get them more towards an optimal, aiming people for 60 to 80 as their vitamin D score, and not just leaving it, well, you've got 22, you're fine. No, you're not fine. So that's a key thing, is the very, very basic fundamentals of looking at your own lab work, checking the ranges, and bucking up and asking your practitioner, say, well, doctor, I know you just passed over this item right here, but it's at the very, very bottom of the range. Is that ideal? So, or go home and research that and call it low, whatever the item is, and research it yourself and look it up. And wow, that's surprising. It seems to hit 4 of my symptoms. Maybe I should pay attention to this. So the opposite of that is this obsession we have with biohacking and the miracle cure. And I work a lot with herpes virus patients, and it's probably the biggest area, surprisingly, in the last 6-8 years of my career and website, and working virtually with people that I'm just flooded with herpes people that nobody's helping. And that's a long story, but that they're anxious and eager enough to try anything, and they haven't yet found my 9 articles and podcasts on the topic. So they'll go and buy random kind of miracle cure biohacking stuff, and and it's just wrong. It's not necessarily hurting people, but you have to approach the care and change of anything in some order of priority. For example, maybe you like antiques, and you go antique hunting, and you find this beautiful table. Well, you can't start with a new stain color. There's a lot of things that has to go first before you can restain and bring that piece to life. And we're the same way. When you try to just brush something across the top, you're not getting to the bottom.
Well, I want to ask one more question here, because as you were talking, I wanted to get your perspective on this. We do things to our bodies. We do damage to our bodies. We take in stuff that aren't good things to take in, and we can do that for years or a decade or more. What have you seen as far as our body's built-in ability to restore itself?
Well, the liver is an incredible organ. I heard it once described as a factory that it's a block long and a block wide. It's an incredible organ, but in the last X number of years, we've been inhaling or putting on our skin or swallowing or dyeing our hair or whatever it is that we do. We're introducing things that, of course, it's never seen before. And part of the fact that, well, okay, it's really a brilliant organ. It knows how to identify stuff and where to send it to be transmuted or whatever, but sometimes it's just not able. That's why we call them forever chemicals, because you can assist the liver in detoxifying forever chemicals. But if you, like most of us, if we have swallowed microplastics, that's something the liver can't handle. So, love your liver, but yes, I do encourage people to be much, much more responsible for having the most organic possible fruits and vegetables, and the fully pasture raised animals. And here's a little trick on that. When you look at a package of meat or something and it says grass fed, that means nothing. If you are a cow, you eat grass, but you may only get to eat grass for the first 6 weeks of your life before you're taken to live in a feedlot for 6 months and fed pesticided, corn and soy, which is not a cow's diet, right? So it can say grass-fed, but the more accurate term is fully pastured or grass-fed, grass-finished. So there's a lot of little tricks out there, but the liver would appreciate if you go to some excellent online fully pastured, paleo approved type of ranchers and vendors that can ship you fabulous boxes of heritage meat, and it doesn't have to be overpriced. It's you're cutting out a lot of the middle chain, and that's something I do encourage people is to stick with fully pastured meats and poultries, and try to stick with the organic fruits and vegetables as much as possible, and water. I personally have only have drunk reverse osmosis filtered water for probably 15-20 years. I don't have any interest in anything else. I mean, a celebration, I might have a sip of wine, but I don't drink anything, and I have really good skin for someone my age in my 70s. And so that right there is a definite longevity. Again, because what did we consume to drink as hunters and gatherers? Eventually, we learned by accident how to ferment a potato or a pile of mangoes or something. But until fermented came along, we drank spring water.
We are really touching on the surface of things. And so I want to encourage people, if this conversation is interesting, go to ondietandhealth.com and also go to the Primal Diet Modern Health podcast, because I know that there's a lot more opportunity for you to get into these things deeper there. And I want to thank you, Beverly, so much for coming on and having this conversation and bringing your knowledge and your experience. I just think it's fantastic that you've been involved in this field as long as you have, and have been able to study as long as you have, and think about these issues as long as you have, and bring that perspective to us.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to pay you a compliment. You're a good host. I've been podcasting for 14 years, but you're a good host. You pay attention, you're vibrant, you're in touch with what you're asking and the replies. And that's not always easy. So just a little thumbs up to you that your listeners appreciate you, that you're an excellent host, and you're doing people a great service.
Well, that means a lot for you to say that. Thank you so much. Well, I hope everything continues to go well in your pursuit of knowledge. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My head is always just bursting with knowledge, and I want to share it.
Fantastic. All right. Take care now. Bye-bye. That one conversation isn't enough to get the information needed to fully evaluate what Beverly talked about, but it sure made me interested to know more. That includes me planning to watch the video series that can be found on Beverly's webpage on dietandhealth.com. The series is titled The Diet for Human Beings. No matter what, there is one thing that Beverly talked about that I think is very important. I believe we have to take into account the environment that humans were in when our biological systems formed. We certainly weren't in an environment that included grocery stores full of highly processed foods. I believe that the more we return to a diet that better matches our biology, the better our health will be. And I'm convinced you will find that concept to be at the heart of Beverly's Primal Diet Modern Health podcast. Now, I hope your cycling adventures are fueled with a lot of good eating, and may that fuel you to explore new cycling experiences. And remember, age is just a gear change.